A lot of you wanted me to cover media from your country in Latin America. So I gathered the most interesting lost media I could find for a few countries. And a lot of these are unheard of for English speakers. So without further ado, here is lost media from Latin America. Boa Noite Brazil, or Good Evening Brazil, was a television variety show hosted by Gilberto Barros. It ran from 2003 to 2007. In 2000, Yu-Gi-Oh! Premiered on television for the first time. And just like in the US, the animation became a huge success in Brazil. However, quickly came a wave of panic. Churches and religious groups across the country began to claim that Yu-Gi-Oh! Was satanic, due to the cards and what they depict, like the many references to the devil. As a result of these claims, Gilberto Barros decided to make 4 small programs attacking Yu-Gi-Oh!, saying that it was the devil's deck. But only 3 days later, Good Evening Brazil decided to dedicate itself a whole segment to dealing with Yu-Gi-Oh! Gilberto went to great lengths to demonize Yu-Gi-Oh!, without knowing truly what it was. One of the most remembered moments from the segment was when Gilberto, trying to give strength to his argument, showed a scene from the movie Dragon Ball Z: The Tree of Power, as if it were Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is ridiculous because they're 2 clearly different things. He probably didn't even know that this wasn't Yu-Gi-Oh! Well, anyways, immediately after airing, parents who watched the show and who went to church threw away, tore apart, and even burned their kids' Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, as well as other card games like Magic and Pokemon. Some schools even banned the card game, not allowing children to play. So this was a pretty big deal at the time. I don't think Gilberto knew exactly what he was getting himself into, since he basically staged a war on every single child in Brazil. Well, this would soon die off, and everything would go back to normal. But in 2017, Gilberto made an apology during a broadcast on TV, saying, "I was guilty, but not that much guilty. People didn't understand the message I wanted to give. It was all from the heart, a movement to improve the youth and children of Brazil." Even though this segment was very popular, there was nothing to show for it, no recordings or pictures. But on January 21st, 2023, 2 behind-the-scenes photos were found on Flickr, taken the day after the program was made. And recently, on January 11th, 2024, some images of the program were released on the Lost Media Brazil Discord server. One of these includes Gilberto tearing a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card apart. So as of right now, there is 0 footage of this program. But hey, maybe one day we'll get a couple seconds. In the early evening of September 7th, 2003, which is Brazil's Independence Day, the program Domingo Legal aired a taped interview with 2 alleged members of the PCC, a very big crime syndicate in Brazil. The interview was filmed inside of a bus, conducted by Domingo Legal's chief reporter and hosted by Gugu Liberato. The 2 PCC members made threats to numerous people, including the deputy mayor of the city of São Paulo, as well as 3 presenters of police programs and soccer commentator/police officer. They also claimed responsibility for the attempted kidnapping of a well-known Catholic priest. However, this ended up pretty badly the next day, because Gugu was harshly criticized for faking the whole interview. That's right, all those threats the PCC made weren't real. One of the people mentioned in the interview, Jose Luis Datena, said that he was not contacted by Gugu and that the interview sent his family into a panic. In the following days, the media kept persisting that it was all a hoax, until a statement from the PCC, released by the press in the same week, denied having threatened presenters and the deputy mayor, saying that the 2 men were not from the group. Eventually, on the 17th, the police concluded that the video had been faked, with the identification of the fake PCC members and the involvement of the production of Domingo Legal, with the station being temporarily suspended and fined. You can probably see where I'm going here. The whole interview has become lost. Yet again, another television broadcast, watched and criticized by many, hasn't been found, becoming one of the most sought-after lost media in Brazil. And as far as I know, there's currently only a 30-second excerpt uploaded to YouTube, as well as 2 videos of news reports of the interview. The chances of finding this might be a bit difficult, as stated by a bug leader on Reddit. It's the kind of thing that gets knocked down every time someone tries to put it on a video site. Many lost interest, even more so with Google's death. As it was in 2003, the VCR was going out of fashion. Relatively few people still had it, and if someone recorded it, they run the risk of not even remembering. Not having a VCR nowadays, and the tapes ending up in a trash at any time. The prosecutor's office received a copy at the time, but even that must be lost. O Povo na TV, translated to The People on TV, was a talk show on controversial topics. The show, being 4 hours long and airing live, was known for its sensationalist tone, showing complaints from the public, reports of crimes such as robbery and assault, poor care in hospitals, and even had arguments live, which often ended up in a fight on stage. There was one incident, however, that ended up being one of the worst moments that's happened on TV. On December 14th, 1982, Maria Erinada da Silva went to the show's studio in Rio de Janeiro, complaining about the lack of medical care for her daughter, Danubia, who was suffering from eye cancer. The little girl, having tumors in her eyes, went through several institutions and hospitals, with Maria hearing multiple excuses for the refusal of treatment. So the mother went to the presenter, Wilton Franco, to say that for 5 months she had been going to hospitals without being able to care for her daughter, and unfortunately, 9-month-old Danubia passed away in front of the cameras, bleeding from her eyes. According to the report, Maria arrived at the studio TVS at 11 a.m., waiting for the program to go on the air at 1 p.m. About 40 minutes after the show went live, the girl was taken in an ambulance. The show received criticism for airing the case, being fueled by the many angry reporters who weren't fans of the show already. The footage of the incident remains lost, and I don't think there's a need for this to be found anytime soon. PSAs are known to be rather frightening for kids. While they're designed to spread awareness and educate people on certain subjects, some PSAs use scare tactics to leave a lasting impression on a kid. That is why so many PSAs end up on mass media threads and subreddits, because later as an adult, who wouldn't want to see a commercial that scared them? There's the obvious ones like Hirogata. I've covered Drururi period recently. And there's the scary que sera sera PSA that wasn't scary at all, or a PSA. Well, in early 2021, Reddit user Into the Bounding Main posted to the Lost Media subreddit. He said, "Lately, I've been thinking about another lost commercial that I've read about online. This time, the search will take us deep into the archives of Argentinian television. Sistema del Educativo Argentino, or CITEA, was an initiative run by the Argentinian Ministry of Communication in the 1990s. The goal of this program was to raise awareness of health, safety, and social issues within the country. Naturally, they made a lot of PSAs. While the ads were often minimalistic and very low budget, some of them have a certain reputation for being rather creepy, even among the international PSA fan community. I can't find very much information on the campaign itself or the number of ads produced, but given the volume of content and low production values, it is highly likely that there are many ads unaccounted for online. This, of course, brings us to the PSA in question. For this bit, we're going to have to look somewhere very familiar. After all, it's where I first heard about this PSA in the first place, and pretty much the only place I've been able to find any mention of it so far. Yeah, it's TV tropes. Under the Argentina tab on the main PSA page is the following. There were also the infamous CITEA ads, warning about cholera or meningitis. The latter showed a creepy scarecrow looming over a cradle. Unfortunately, there are no videos of them, but they have left their mark. This description used to terrify me when I read the page as a kid. Now that I'm familiar with CITEA and their campaigns, it's likely not as horrifying as it sounds, but I'd still love to be able to see this one day. Plenty of cholera PSAs from CITEA are out there, but I am unable to find very many, if any at all, based around meningitis. Unfortunately, this time around, that's all the information I can find right now. It's certainly a shot in the dark, but any information on this at all would be very much appreciated. Besides one comment, this didn't get very much attention at all, only garnering 23 upvotes, but it still got my attention. TV tropes are now well known for having super reliable sources, as anyone can edit a page, but I'm still willing to believe that this is out there. There are tons of these CTA PSAs on YouTube, mentioning a variety of topics, including ones about cholera, but no scarecrow or baby cradle is mentioned. There are some that are very similar, like this one about eating unhealthily.
Una para mamá. Una para papá. Una para la nena.
There's also this one about noise sensitivity on children.
Al estímulo de ruidos, es hora de consultar a un médico especialista. No hagamos oídos sordos.
So what are the chances that this PSA isn't made up and actually did happen? Well, in 1992, Argentina faced a pretty big cholera epidemic, starting in countries like Peru and Bolivia, and quickly spread over the country, claiming over 3,000 lives. Cholera is caused by contaminated food and water, and while anyone can contract cholera, it is obviously more dangerous to children and babies with weaker immune systems. Now, given the very vague description of the PSA, a scarecrow standing over a cradle, I'm assuming this PSA is about keeping your children safe from diseases like cholera. On the other hand, despite finding multiple PSAs about cholera, I couldn't find one on meningitis. However, that doesn't mean the scarecrow PSA isn't about meningitis, given just how diverse these PSA topics are. So that's really all we can gather for now. I do think this PSA exists, and that section in the TV Tropes website was written by an Argentinian who likely saw it as a kid, because after all, who would ever lie on the internet? But yeah, if anyone has any recollection of a scarecrow PSA, please let us know. Margarita Di Tullio, better known by her nickname Pepita the Gunslinger, was an Argentine-born vigilante, thief, pimp, and murderer. In 1985, she shot and killed 3 men in her apartment who were supposedly out to get her. Famously though, she was unjustly accused of murdering reporter José Luis Cabezas, for which she spent time in jail for, before it was known that she was innocent. After gaining fame as a tough woman, she was invited to several talk shows, including the famous program Almorzando con Mirtha Legrand, aka Having Lunch with Mirtha Legrand. It is one of the most popular and well-liked programs in all of Argentina. With more than 50 uninterrupted years on the air, it has had a variety of guests, as well as national and international celebrities, who have lunch and talk with Mirtha Legrand, one of the most famous presenters in the country. Margarita Di Tullio was invited to the program in October 1998 to talk about her involvement in the José Luis Cabezas case I mentioned earlier. Now, the show went by pretty normally, nothing out of the usual. But according to several sources, Pepita, in her autobiography, which she could not finish due to her death in 2009, related the following. The day I was invited to Mirtha Legrand's table, I took cocaine in front of her face. I would tuck the white powder under my pinky fingernail and sniff. In one cut, Mirtha asked me if my nose aged. Today, I regret that. But I came from being imprisoned, even though I was innocent, and my head was everywhere. This was not made public until her death, nor has her autobiography. But apart from this, there is no further information about the episode. Lunch with Mirtha Legrand, despite being very popular and playing an important role in Argentine television, has been very poorly protected. Therefore, the vast majority of the episodes are completely lost or partially found. There is another well-known lost media relating to the show, however this one is unconfirmed. The story follows golfer Roberto de Vicenzo, considered the best golfer in Argentine history, winning more than 230 tournaments, and being inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame in 1989. Now, there are several versions of the story depending on who you ask, but it goes something like this. In the 1970s, Mirtha Legrand had invited Roberto and his wife to her show. At one point, his wife says that the night before each game, she kissed the balls that her husband would use. Mirtha then asks if it was the golf balls. In other words, Mirtha didn't understand if his wife was literally kissing her husband's golf balls, or something else. Mirtha herself has said on several occasions that this story was invented. On one occasion in 2013, she said, "I never met that woman or invited her." However, Roberto himself partially confirmed this story and said the interview was real. However, his version of the story is different from the popular one, since it was he who answered the question and not his wife. So maybe his wife was never there. Like I said before, the show isn't well preserved, so no footage, pictures, or anything is available. I'm not gonna lie to you, I have a soft spot for game show lost media. There's just something about them that makes them so interesting. The fact that it airs in front of a live audience and features non-actors can result in some pretty unexpected moments. And in Argentina, it's no different. Los Ocho Escalones, aka The 8 Steps, is an Argentine quiz show created by Endemol and directed by well-known actor and producer Guido Casca. The show premiered on January 24th, 2014, and it still goes on today, being broadcast uninterrupted. However, one of those exceptions is a 2015 episode. The objective of the game is to answer multiple choice trivia questions correctly to move up a set of stairs. Correctly answering one guarantees that the participant goes up the stairs, while an incorrect answer will take them down a step, as well as one of their 3 lives. The game ends when the participant loses all of their lives. The incident was announced by journalist Carlos Monti on a morning program where he said that that week's episode of The 8 Steps would not be released due to an inconvenience that had happened with the participants and the presenter. He said this about the event. He was recording the program, The 8 Steps, last Friday on Channel 13. The point is that students from a school were invited to participate. At a certain point, the boys wanted to be clever. They wanted to start wasting it on Guido Casca. The young men began to make a couple of jokes on the host, who was trying to stay calm, but began to get angry when things escalated. The thing is, he swallowed hard. He let it go once, he let it go twice. But the guys kept making jokes, and this started to get sharper. At one point, Guido got heated and said, "This is it. Stop the recording. I'm leaving." He cut the recording and left. He said he couldn't tolerate being made fun of. He endured, accepted the rules of the game, but there came a moment when he said, "What's wrong with you? You came to make fun of me? You came for what?" They tell me that they were very aggressive against Guido and against the channel as well. Apparently, the boys took advantage of the situation to get out of hand and be too clever. Once Guido left the studio, the production tried to make the kids understand that they had behaved wrongly. Quote, "They were big. They were 17 or 18 years old. They knew exactly what they were doing. They told me that they noticed that the boys had come for this exact purpose. The show is obviously not going to air because filming has been stopped." And they were right. The only time the show didn't air for 1 week was because of this. Everything that was filmed for the episode, including the incident, has never been shown to the public. Out of all the Argentine ones, I would love to see this one the most. Although I do feel bad for Guido Casca, as he was very patient with these kids, I feel like I would enjoy seeing the altercation. I feel like this one has a much better chance of being found. But as of right now, this is all we have. Club 10 was a Colombian children's program created by Andres Huertas and broadcast by Caracol Television from 1999 to 2015. The show starred 3 puppets named Aurelio Cheveroni, Mary Moon, and Inodoro, who had everyday adventures with other characters. The show was hugely popular in Colombia during the 2000s. They had 3 music albums produced, even performing live throughout Colombia. However, due to a ratings lost in the early 2010s, it was decided to end the show. In April 2015, it last aired with a total of 1,322 episodes produced. Despite its immense popularity, only a few snippets and promos of the show are found. In 2018, Caracol Television's official YouTube channel uploaded part of the episode's broadcast between 2014 and 2015, so anything before that, especially the early episodes, are completely lost. Now, if you really believe that I was telling you about a random Colombian children's show just because it's partially found, well, you'd be mistaken, because its episodes are not the only thing that's lost. You see, in 2017, Fernando Rojas, who puppeteered and voiced the character Aurelio Cheveroni from its beginnings until 2012, was interviewed for Vice magazine, where he commented on his experience as a worker for Caracol Television and his experience on the show. The interview was going relatively normal, questions about finding his character, his voice, and how he discovered acting. When the interviewer asked if he ever got bored of work, he replied yes, but mentioned how it went away after the channel wanted to do a spin-off show of Rojas' character titled La Familia Cheveroni. He said, that program had an adult context. There were implied sexual situations where the wolf had carnal and spicy desires that made him a little more interesting. The interviewer replied, but always taking into account the children's audience. He replied back, of course, because of the childhood context, many things had to be repressed. But you can't imagine all these sexual scenes that are recorded between the cat, the dinosaur, and the wolf behind the camera. I don't dare to take them out because of the problem with Caracol, but suddenly one day that comes to light. Who knows? While we were on breaks, someone with a cell phone would record the wolf performing oral sex on the cat, and the wolf would then stand up and wipe his mouth and tongue. There are also pictures of the wolf taking drugs and drunk. Okay. Good job, Colombia. You really surprised me here, and that's really hard to do. So yeah, not only is the whole show pretty much lost, so are these recordings and pictures. And if I know one thing, it's that you can never hide forever. So I'll be waiting very patiently for this to come out. On December 1st, 2014, during the program Noticias Caracol, there was a live coverage on the death of Mexican actor and comedian Roberto Gomez Bolaños, better known as Chespirito. Luis Carlos Avila, a Colombian blogger and Chespirito fan who wrote a thesis on the actor, was invited to be interviewed on the newscast for about 10 minutes. While images of Chespirito's funeral were shown, the same program showed the headline, Expert Speech in Chespirito, while the interview was taking place. Due to the nature of the interview and the weird title Expert in Chespirito, this part of the coverage went viral on social media such as Twitter or Facebook. Several users posted photos and memes of the interview broadcast. Now, if you don't really know who Chespirito is, he's one of the most popular actors in all of Latin America, and his death was a big deal, so a lot of people tuned into this broadcast. And despite this meme becoming so popular, only a 20-second fragment of the video prior to the segment has been found, although there's a lot of pictures of the segment due to people posting their reactions. Luis Carlos Avila himself stated in an interview that he has a recording of the segment and said that he would upload it or share it, but nothing has been revealed as of yet. Luis commented this on the podcast.
Eso fue en el año 2012 que yo estuve en México. A los 2 años, en el 2014, Roberto Gómez Bolaños murió. Y como yo ya había recorrido algunos medios y les parecía curiosa mi historia, me invitaron a muchos medios de comunicación a hablar sobre Chespirito y por qué era importante. Con tan mala suerte en que me invitaron al noticiero de Caracol, que es uno de los noticieros más grandes de aquí de Colombia. Y resulta que pusieron mi nombre y ustedes pueden ver que dice Luis Carlos Ávila, pero resultó que los periodistas, los generadores de caracteres, no supieron qué poner, entonces pusieron experto en Chespirito. Y luego eso mutó a otro concepto que es que les parecía muy larga la expresión y empezaron a llamarme en vivo el Chespiritólogo.
Wow. But yeah, despite the many pictures of the segment, there is zero footage. Until one day Luis decides to post it. During 2008, around 4 a.m. in Colombia, the RCN channel broadcast reruns of some of the shows that were airing around that time. Then, right before the channel closed its programming for the day, it would play the national anthem. However, for 3 early mornings, between August and November of that year, this protocol was interrupted by a broadcast. The screen went black after the last show ended, and instead of showing the national anthem, after a few minutes, the Colombian journalist and presenter Bernardo Duque appeared in front of a white background, reciting one or more poems. The content of the poems is described as aggressive and violent. At the end, the screen goes black again, and finally the anthem is played. Now, the reason why Bernardo would have specifically selected these poems would be as a form of protest against the actions of the Colombian government and army throughout the year, for the escalation of violence in the country, and against the channel's neglect to cover these news stories properly. To this day, there are no images or videos of the broadcast, which is why some think that this is an urban legend, although there are some witnesses who claim to have seen it and felt fear and shock at the messages transmitted. Bernardo Duque passed away in 2013. His death coincided with the 15th anniversary of RCN. In 2022, someone was able to get in contact with the retired RCN cameraman who operated one of the cameras recording Duque. With this, we were able to find a little more information about this intrusion. The approximate duration of the transmission was about 4 to 5 minutes. 5 broadcasts were planned, but only 3 aired. The recordings were removed for fear of being discovered by the channel. There was a third person involved. Neither the cameraman nor the third person knew the content of the poems. But you know, this is coming from a random person on the internet, so there isn't a real way of verifying this. For this last one, I'll talk about one that encompasses most of Latin America. Plaza Sésamo is the Latin American version of the popular American show Sesame Street. An interesting fact about the different versions of Sesame Street all around the world is that instead of dubbing the English show, they create their own and localize it to their culture. So for this reason, some characters might change in appearance, like Bodoque the Grouch, who replaced Oscar the Grouch, and Big Bird is replaced by his many cousins, like who can forget about Popus from Portugal, or Pino from the Netherlands, or Abelardo from Mexico, who's a parrot, and a dragon? You see, during his initial stage, Abelardo had a very different design and personality than what is known today. This first version was a big dragon. This dragon had 2 designs, one of pink hues, a yellow crest, and light blue eyes, and another, orange, with yellow tones and a crest with bells at the tips, kind of like a jester. In 1981, this design was replaced by the well-known Abelardo, who is vastly more popular, even showing up in some episodes of the English Sesame Street. While most of the dragon's episodes are lost, a few videos and segments have been found. In 2020, episode 327 was uploaded, obtained from a VHS recording containing a segment featuring the original Abelardo. In 2012, HBO's official YouTube channel uploaded a trailer for a documentary about the history of Sesame Street, in which you can see for a split second a scene with original Abelardo. And in 2023, an 18-minute video of an episode of Sesame Street was uploaded on Google Drive. And that was all I had for today. I'm very sorry if I didn't get to your specific country. I can only do so much in one video, but feel free to drop down suggestions for the future. I'll be happy to read them. And let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. I'll see ya.